Here we are in Proverbs chapter 12. And again, the Proverbs, like the other two, they're snippets of understanding, often juxtapositions of righteousness and wicked, of frowardness and just. What's the right way? What's the wrong way? Very clear in what they're saying here. And if you read these, you'll get a clear understanding of what he's saying. So make sure you read all of them, do your grid work. This is 28 verses, which is like 28 reps today, mental reps. You can do them. I did them. Whosoever loveth instructions loves knowledge, but he that hateth reproof is brutish. The idea of hating reproof. Don't tell me what to do. I have already figured this out. I know how this works. Reproof is a good thing. Let me look over the math. Let me check the blueprint. Let's look at this. Did you really mean? Did you say? That's a form of reproof. I do this all the time with my boss. Okay, you wanted me to do this and this. He goes, yes, this and this. So reproof is a good thing. I'm going through these. A virtuous woman is a crown to her husband, but she that maketh ashamed is as a rottenness in his bones. Again, the understanding of what this is. He that is despised and hath a servant is better than he that honoreth himself and lacks bread. That one sounds a little awkward. You're despised, but sometimes you're despised for doing what's right. You're despised for having resources. You're despised for having power. But what you do is you have a servant and you have these people that you're taking care of responsibilities. There's a man who honoring himself. I know what I'm doing, but he has nothing. Again, he has nothing here. A righteous man regardeth the life of his beast, but the tender mercies of the wicked are cruel. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he that hearkeneth unto counsel is wise. So once again, a lot of wisdom here. Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord. I remember hearing this when I was a boy. But they that deal truly are his delight. You want to be a delight to the Lord, a delight of the Lord? Do not tell lies. And that was an interesting thing I learned as a boy. The hand of the prudent shall bear rule, but the slothful shall come under tribute. He that is diligent will bear rule. You can rule over me, I'll be diligent. But the slothful will have to pay taxes or have to pay the penalty for disobeying. It's like having, a ticket for something, You're now going to pay a fine. That's tribute was often a fine for what you did. So reading through these 28, glean through them, get the strength of them, and then we're going to move on. I think it's very powerful mental stuff. This is good mental gymnastics. So going back to 2 Kings, remember I showed you the list of kings. You had the kings of the southern kingdom, which went straight down from Jeroboam all the way to Zedekiah. And it started off good, had a lot of strong kings, but started ending weak. We haven't got to that weak part yet. We saw the entire life, the kings of the northern kingdom, and that takes care of through 17. Like I'd said before, is that 16 and 17 are the end of the northern kingdom. They get taken away. What's interesting is they're taken away about halfway through the southern kingdom. Let me get my piece of paper here. We're really only about Jotham or Ahaz right now. You can't really see that. I'll get that closer. That's where we are when you have these problems that lead to the end of the northern kingdom into what's known as the Assyrian captivity. The rest of those from Hezekiah down through Zedekiah is stuff that happens in the next 150 years after the fall of the northern kingdom. And the northern kingdom's fall was not by accident. Here we have in 16, we're talking about in the 17th year of Pekah, that Ahaz started to reign. Once again, Pekah was near the end. Ahaz was still in the middle. And Ahaz was in the middle of the southern kingdom. Pekah was near the end. He was one away from the end in the northern kingdom. And so we see these guys ran together, and Syria started to become a problem for Judah, and so did Israel, but they were now be using as swords. It's interesting how when they were strong, they didn't have any problems with Syria. They worked with Syria. And so they didn't have a problem with Israel too much. But now, because they're getting into sin, Israel and Syria are being used as swords, just like Syria was used as a sword against the northern kingdom. So they come in and they come to war to Jerusalem and besiege Ahaz. And Ahaz goes and sends messengers to Assyria and says, I'm your servant and thy son. Come up and save me out of the hand of Syria and Israel. And he took silver and gold and found in the house of the Lord. Again, this wasn't the gold for the Lord's use, but it was the tribute money, the gifts and offerings that came in that were used. It's supposed to be used for the benefit of the Levites and for the furtherance of a strong economy, for lending and whatnot. The church, the banking went through the temple. It's interesting how you didn't have independent bankers, really. You had that went through the temple, which is God controlling the economy. So he goes to the king of Assyria and gives him money. And so Assyria comes down and went against Damascus and took it and carried away the people captive and slew Rezin. So he starts doing an end run from the top down. Syria and Israel go against Judah, but now Assyria is coming down against Syria and Israel. So it takes, while they're gone attacking Jerusalem, they come in and take some cities. And so Ahaz sent to Damascus to meet with the king of Assyria, and saw an altar. And here he brings more idolatry into the southern kingdom. He goes and sees this altar that's there, and he likes it. He likes the fashion of this altar. And he tells Urijah, the priest, to build an altar according to all that the king Ahaz had seen in Damascus. So Urijah the priest made it against King Ahaz and came from Damascus. And the king came from Damascus, and the king saw the altar, and the king approached the altar. So he's burning incense on this foreign altar. And he's doing these things, and this is really provocative. Here is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's got his promise going to the northern and to the southern kingdoms. He's trying to hold on to the promises he made, and that the light would stay in Jerusalem. But here King Ahaz is trying to put that light out. He's going to worship in Damascus, in the northern kingdom. And he's going to want to bring that back and worship like that in the southern kingdom. And he commands Urijah, upon the great altar burn morning and evening sacrifices, and sprinkle the blood of the burnt offering and all the blood of the sacrifice. And Urijah did as the king commanded. And he cuts off the borders and the labels. He changes what God had commanded and what God had created, and he makes it different. And now we see idolatry is moving its way in. In the 12th year of Ahaz of Judah, Hoshea comes in. This is the last one. This is going to be it for the northern kingdom. He comes in. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel that were before him. So he wasn't as bad as Jeroboam and Baasha, but he still did evil in the sight of the Lord. Nonetheless, the die was cast. God spends 16 through 22 stating his case about why he turned and why this happened. This wasn't out of nowhere. In the 9th year, Hosea, the king of Syria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria. Here we see the end. For it was so that the king of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, which had brought them out of the land of Egypt. He goes again from 6 to 22, laying it out. I took you out of Egypt. But these people are secretly doing the things that are not right against the Lord. Oh, they know, oh, we'll go to the temple and we'll do this and we'll do that and we'll make sure we take care of the priest and blah, blah. But secretly, in their hearts and off in their groves and off in private, they're doing worship of other gods. And they set them up images and groves on every high hill and every green tree, and they burnt offerings in the high places. And they did wicked things, provoking the God to anger. And they served idols, which the Lord has said, ye shall not do this thing. He told them clearly in plain Hebrew, you shall not do these things. Turn ye from your evil ways, and keep my commandments and my statutes according to the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent you by his servants, the prophets. Nonetheless, you would not hear, but hardened their necks. If this is not the greatest condemnation of Calvinism right here, God did not make them harden their necks. They hardened themselves. This was free will. Like the neck of their fathers that did not believe in the Lord their God. They rejected his statutes and his covenant he made with their fathers. For he testified against them, and they followed vanity and became vain. They became like the heathen, and around about them, concerning whom the Lord had charged them, they left all the commandments of the Lord their God, and made molten images, even 2 calves. He knows what's going on. And the Lord was very angry with Israel, and removed them out of his sight. that there was none left but the tribe of Judah only. Here we go. He is so wrathful, and he's making his case. And he's telling Judah, there's none left but you. And Judah kept not the commandments of the Lord God, and walked in the statutes of Israel, which they made. And the Lord rejected all the seed of Israel, and afflicted them, and delivered them into the hands of spoilers, until they were cast out of his sight. This did not happen by accident. Historically, the fall of the northern kingdom to the Assyrians in 701 BC, and later on the fall of Judah to the Babylonians in 587 BC. And then, of course, here comes exactly 70 years later, the remnant under Zerubbabel and Ezra and Nehemiah, reestablishing this remnant in Jerusalem. None of this was by accident, and this is historically accurate. The Lord rejected all the seed of Israel. It says the children of Israel walked in the sins of Jeroboam, and they departed not, and the Lord removed them out of his sight, and they are in Assyria unto this day. Unto the writing of this, they're still in Assyria. And you know what? Many of them are still in Assyria. Some of them came back. Some of those did come back when the borders were opened up and people could come back in. Maybe they came back. Some of them came back when they saw the borders were open with the establishment of the remnant. So we don't know for sure there. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon. It finishes here talking about how the king of Assyria decided, and this is historical, that I'm going to mix people up. I'm going to take people from their lands and put them in other lands, and I'm going to take people from their lands. Instead of the Jews staying in one area, I'm going to break them up and put Jews in every nation. I'm going to take Phoenicians and put them in every nation. I'm going to take some of the Philistines and put them in every nation. He created a melting pot, if you will. This is why the Samaritans were always considered half Jews, because there was a Jewish presence. It was the poorest of the poor, but there was also this intermingled of the races and the cultures around them. So we saw this as a problem. He does that on purpose. Interesting enough, here we see that the Lord saw this, and he sent lions. He sent lions to, sorry, the sun's getting in my eyes. He sent lions to the into that area and was killing them. And they told the king of Assyria, the nations which thou hast removed and placed in the cities of Samaria know not the manner of the God of the land. And he's sending lions because you don't know the manner of the God of the land. So what happens is he goes, well, get some priests to go down there and teach them how to appease this God. Now remember, that's the only thing they knew about gods, was appease them and they'll leave you alone. Appease them and they'll give you fruits. Appease them and they'll take care of you. But God did not want to be just the God that you appease and he gives you stuff. He wants that connection. He wants his values. He wants to be followed. He wants his commandments. He wants his culture. He wants his economy. He wants his justice. He wants all these things, not just, to get stuff from. So they get these priests and they teach these nations how to appease Yahweh. And so they took some priests away, howbeit every nation made gods of their own and put them in the houses of their own places, and the Samaritans dwelt in every nation. And so what happened was they would have tried to appease Yahweh, and it says here that they feared the Lord and served their own gods. Interesting. I'm afraid of the Lord. He sends lions. I'm afraid of the Lord. He does these things. And yet what happens is I'm still going to serve other gods. So I'm going to appease him so that we don't have lions eating us. The sun's getting in my eyes again. That we don't have lions eating us, but I'm going to serve other gods. These other gods that will give me sex, these other gods that will give me stuff, I'll serve them. But I'm going to appease this God because I need good crops, and I need health, and I need wealth. Can't get away from the sun today. It's starting to bug me a little bit. So we see that they feared the Lord, and unto this day do they, after the former manners, they do not fear the Lord. And it's interesting, it says they fear the Lord, but they don't fear the Lord. They fear the Lord, but they're not serving the Lord. Unto this day, neither do they after his statutes and after the ordinance, or after the law and the commandments which the Lord commanded the children of Jacob. So we see this problem here. In whom the Lord made the covenant, you shall not fear other gods, nor bow down to them, nor serve them. Once again, he's doing this thing where he's showing, again, a little bit of history, and he's making his case about why he's doing what he's doing. And so we have this, and he finishes out this chapter talking about why this happened, what they did, and the covenant that I made with them you shall not forget, neither thou shalt fear other gods. But the Lord your God shall you fear, and he delivered you out of the hands of his enemies. But they did not hearken. But they did after their former manner. So the nations feared the Lord and served other graven images, both the children and the children's children. So we see this problem is how at the end of this, you have this people group now in Samaria, in Damascus, a multicultural group, worshiping their own gods here, there, and everywhere, fearing Yahweh because he sends lions and he's powerful, but I don't want to serve him. And sometimes I think that's where we are in America. We fear God. Oh yeah, God's on our money, God's here, God's there. But we don't want to serve him. We don't want to do things his way. We don't want to, let's change this a little bit. We don't want to do things his way, and we don't want to fear him. We just want his blessings, but we don't want his person. And that's a tragedy. We need to learn from the errors of the northern kingdom and not be like them. Wish that sun was off of me. There you go. This is a little better. Thank you.